moment. How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we the people choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing!
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
The people dreamed this country, and it's the people who are making America great again. Making rock and roll.
Good evening, friends. It's good to be with you on this Wednesday night here as we wrap up the month of May and head into my favorite time of year, which is summer. Welcome to the Audit the Vote podcast. I am Tony Shoup, your host, CEO of Audit the Vote PA, also the East Coast ambassador for Patriot Academy. And we have got a lot to unpack and cover tonight coming out of the primary from yesterday. But before we do that, we need to grow our social media platforms. One, so we can monetize them, and that can be a revenue stream to help us continue the mission and not have to solicit as many donations. Thank you to those of you that give, whether it was one time or you're giving on a recurring basis. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But please like this video, share it, subscribe to our channels. We need to increase subscriptions on every platform, especially YouTube. We're trying to build up to get the message out. Be great if we could monetize the channel. Who knows what's going to happen in the future, if we'll get booted again or not. But if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and share it to other people. It is how we compete with the lunatic lefties, and it's even how we compete with those within our own movement that are not necessarily doing the right things right now, as we need a little bit of a bigger voice. And you can help us by subscribing, liking, and sharing this video out. Share this to everybody in Pennsylvania. I'm going to give you my thoughts and my breakdown from the primaries yesterday. I did spend my first time actually physically working in a polling location as a clerk. I feel like I've observed every other part of the process. I've greeted outside. I've watched mail-in ballots be counted in 3 different counties. And yesterday I finally actually worked as a clerk. So I got to see from the inside what that was like. And it was quite an experience. Thank you to all the poll workers who took the time out of their schedule to do that. It is a long day, like really long day. You have to be there at 6:30 in the morning before the polls open. It's a slow day during primaries, unfortunately, that we got to figure out how to fix, but it's a slow day. And so there's a lot. Just by the end of the day, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, we made it. We made it. And the polls close at 8. You help the judge of elections wrap everything up, and you don't get home till 9 at night from like 6 in the morning. It's a long day. So thank you to everybody that serves. And I would encourage you out there, if you haven't, to please get involved, because if you haven't noticed, you go to vote on election day, more than likely the people sitting behind the table are in the last quarter of their life. And we are not going to keep the republic if it stays that way. I have noticed in my experience that the Democrats are very good at pulling in the young people. and we have to get good at doing the same thing. So yesterday, every young person that came into the polls, I said, hey, see that sign-in sheet over there on the door? If you are willing to work these polls, fill that out. We will get in touch with you. So it was a good day, but the results, okay. So getting into the primary results, again, share this video, everybody in Pennsylvania. My phone's blowing up. I'm getting all kinds of questions. What do you think? Josh Prince got clobbered. Maria Batista made it through. Mayor Ed Gainey in Pittsburgh got ousted. There's all kind of crazy stuff going on in Philadelphia with the DA Larry Krasner. What do we do now? Well, if you're like me and you're newly thrown into this political sphere where your life is now on the election cycles and legislative cycles, we made it through the primary and now we have to get to the general election. We're going to get to that. But before we do, Joel, go ahead and share the electionreturns.pa.gov website so we can go through some of the results and I can give you guys my thoughts. As many of you know that are probably watching this, there were 2 statewide judge races that in a primary, it's kind of rare that there are statewide races on the off years. This doesn't always happen, but this year in particular, we did have 2 statewide judges, one for Superior Court and one for, let me see, why is that just showing unofficial results? Scroll down, Judge of Superior Court. Why the heck is it just showing that instead of the whole... Oh, wait, I see the Republican on the other side. Oh, my gosh, Joel, my eyes. You wouldn't know I had cataract surgery a few weeks ago, and I'm supposed to have really good eyes now. We're good. You're totally good. It's not me. Or it was me. The blue being the Democrat and the red being the Republican. Superior Court, we had Maria Batista against Anne-Marie Wheatcraft. Anne-Marie Wheatcraft, I honestly don't know very much about, but she was the endorsed candidate picked by the Pennsylvania GOP that many of us would argue is largely establishment. And this was a win that the grassroots, I think we did send a good message. I'm glad that Maria got over the finish line. I think it sends a message to the grassroots or to the PA GOP and says, no, you don't pick our candidates for us and tell us who we're going to support. The grassroots pick. And so I don't think that yesterday was a total loss just because the other seat, the Commonwealth Court, which is a big deal, we did not get Josh Prince over the finish line. And he lost by a pretty big margin to Matt Wolford, who neither candidate was really out much. I didn't hear a whole lot about either of them. I do know, if you've been following us in the show here at Audit the Vote, when Josh Prince filed the lawsuit in favor of election integrity against Cambria County, we just were able to go all in because he truly showed that he does support elections. He knows that something went horribly awry in 2020. I've never heard either of the endorsed candidates by the PA GOP say anything about the election. In fairness, I've never met them or interacted with them, but there is that. So I was disappointed that Josh showed up where he did. And there's been things going around. How could this have happened? It's strange that we got one and not the other, but maybe it's not so strange because I'm starting to understand elections. Believe it or not, some people just go in and vote top of the ticket. The first person they see, if they don't recognize a name or they're not recommended to vote for a certain person by someone they trust, either a friend or a family member, then they just click the top of the ticket. So it looks to me, if we're not going crazy conspiracy theory route, if we're not thinking that there was manipulation within the machines or they stuffed mail ballots or all the other things that we know are possible, but we don't have evidence 24 hours later to yet show. If we're going with elections are as fair as they can be and they're honest, it looks like Republicans just went in and clicked the top. Batista, Wolford, boom, done. And I don't necessarily know how to change that, but I think we have to work on educating our voters better so that doesn't happen as much and we get the people's choice. Because I just don't think that Matt Wolford represents who the people really want, especially with a turnout. Our turnout was abysmal, statewide around 20%. Although that is unfortunately normal for a primary. And so something that we would really like to work on with all the other grassroots groups, I was on the phone again today with Brandon Strock from Walkaway, is changing hearts and minds and educating voters, getting people to understand you've got to turn out in the primaries. Last week, of course, we interviewed Joey Lynn. If you didn't see last week's episode, go watch it. Joey Lynn Maceras from Texas was able to oust a woke city councilman by tripling the turnout in her primary, just in her own little, basically backyard, her own little district. I don't know how many voters, but probably not a ton. They worked their fannies off and they went from a 4% turnout. So when you're feeling bad, Pennsylvania, at least we got more than 4% turnout. I don't know that any of our counties or areas were quite that bad. Went from 4% to 12% turnout. And, in Pennsylvania, if we just increase a little bit, I would love, can you imagine 30 to 35% turnout in a primary? Like the difference that would make would be enormous. And I don't know exactly how we do it. I don't have a step-by-step plan, but I'm sure as heck going to start working on it. I know it starts with education and educating the voters on what's at stake and getting people paying attention, which is why you need to share this video, like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. Tell your friends about it and say, hey, this crazy lady in Pennsylvania in her shed started about 5 years ago just talking to us. And now here we are listening to her every Wednesday night for what's going on. Give us the 411 on election integrity in Pennsylvania. Looking at my notes so I don't miss anything. Oh, so here's a win, something to celebrate on the election integrity side. Audit the Vote did work with PA Fair Elections and other groups that wanted to recruit judge of elections. So the other race that's on this ballot that is important is the head honcho, we'll call them, at the polling location on election day. So I'm a newly awoken patriot in March of 2020. Sometime between there and September, I did start meeting people that were telling me, you have to go be judge of elections. Are you a judge? And I was like, do I need a black robe for that or a law degree? Because I don't have either one. And I still don't know why we call it that. I know Georgia, they're called poll managers. I think that makes so much more sense. But either way, they're the judge of elections. And I think that's mostly because everything falls on them if a decision has to be made of whether or not to allow someone to vote or how to vote. If there's any issues, the judge ultimately is the decision maker, the person, the boss. We were calling her boss lady. She was she was a Democrat. Great. The poll I worked, Democrat judge of elections, but she did a wonderful job. Lots of integrity, dotted her I's, crossed her T's, could not have done a better job. And see, that's where we get back to trusting the results. When there's both parties working together as hard as they can, reconciling all the ballots at the end of the night, making sure that we don't have more ballots than voters who showed up or vice versa. We're not missing something. And by the way, we checked throughout the day, every couple of hours, all of us that were working. It was a really cool experience. So I would strongly recommend, if you have concerns about election integrity, you need to get involved in the polls on election day, because then you feel like you're actually doing your part. You're actually doing something. So we did a big campaign because our judges of elections are up all across the state this year, 2025. So we can literally get election integrity people in all 9,000 precincts, or the opportunity, I should say, is there for us to get election integrity people in all 9,000 plus precincts, however many we have, so that we have good people on the ground on our election day moving forward, especially for the midterms. And of course, 2028, which I can't even wrap my brain around a post-President Trump world yet. So I just, you can relate. I just can't go there. It's too overwhelming. We still have so much to do. We're very early, just over 100 days into his presidency, but I know it's out there. And I think we have an idea of who the Democrats are going to put up, which I think is going to be our lovely governor here in the state of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. So that's going to be a good time for me. Ooh. All that to say, thank you to those who voted yesterday, who worked the polls, and also to report, here was my news. We recruited newly judge of elections across 18 of our 67 counties. We did an email drip campaign. So if you're not on our email list, go to our website, auditthevotepA.com, and sign up to be on our email list and check it out, because Vico has redone it. We have a whole new redesigned website. We're trying to make it more user-friendly, easier to see our findings in terms of what we found in a chronological order, and then also to put resources on there to equip patriots that want to get involved in election integrity. How can you make a difference, and how can you get involved? So, judge of election, thank you. If you ran for judge of elections, congratulations to those that won, that will be on the ballot in November, or some were majority inspector. There was an inspector and a judge. They are basically, the judge is the boss, the inspector is second in command. And in a perfect world, you have one from each party in each of those positions. And so we're working in November. I think we still have time to do write-ins or do more campaigns, especially in some of the more vulnerable areas where we have seen issues in the past. So now we shift our focus to congratulations, everybody that got on the ballot. And now we're going to try to take a look at how many people we have on the ballot statewide, in what areas, and see where there's not somebody, can we still do write-in campaigns in those bluer areas that have a tendency to maybe not follow the rules so much, kind of like they did in Allegheny, where the lady was just letting people vote, not sign the poll book, and then left the precinct and came back with ballots. And this is all documented, by the way. And Allegheny County just sent a letter to her and said, don't do that again. No. That's just not okay. So if people, and it's, by the way, all Democrats aren't like that, because I worked with one yesterday that was perfectly sane and really cared about the integrity of her work. And so that was a good experience. We just need honest people that actually care about the integrity of our elections. Speaking of education being key and the fix is local, I will check the comments. I want to share a promotional video to you. Hang on, Joel, don't share it just yet. Patriot Academy is coming out with a brand new curriculum, supposed to launch July 4th. I haven't heard otherwise from Mr. Green and crew. So as far as I know, we're still tracking towards July 4th launch of this new curriculum. It's going to really light the grassroots on fire the same way Biblical Citizenship did and Constitutional Live did in 2020, because it's all new, it's fresh, it's action steps. How do we bring back liberty? How do we literally rebuild liberty from the ground up? Taking what the forefathers gave us and what their intention was and putting it into practice in modern day. And how do we really restore the republic for the next generation, for posterity's sake? So Joel, cue that video up. It's a quick promo video. Hopefully I don't get edited out. You can see a familiar face in there in the preview. Don't know what the end is going to look like, so we'll see. But it's
Calling all patriots, the 250th birthday of America is right around the corner, and the work begins now. It's the perfect opportunity to educate America, to solve the civic ignorance problem we have with some civic literacy, teaching the principles of the Declaration of Independence, so that we're not just celebrating on July 4th, not just having a bunch of hot dogs and fireworks, and we're not just waving the American flag. We understand why the American flag is being waved. We actually bring to life the principles of the Declaration of Independence. Now, of course, we've been doing that for decades at Patriot Academy and at Wall Builders, but this is the opportunity to get millions of Americans to join us in understanding these principles of the Declaration of Independence. So we literally wrote the book, the blueprint for rebuilding liberty, just in time for America's 250th, and we want you to partner with us. So here's the plan. It's not complicated, but it does involve money and time. In fact, it's lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. I think I heard that somewhere, and we'll be teaching on that. So here's how you can be a part of it. We're going to work with the White House and with 100 different organizations that already are constitutionally oriented organizations, and they already have people in the field. And we're going to put 5 million people through the Rebuild Liberty course so that they understand the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. In other words, we're going to do what Ronald Reagan told us to do in his farewell address in 1989. January of 1989, he warned of an eradication of the American memory that would lead to an erosion of the American spirit. And that's what happened. So we're going to restore the American memory, and we're going to restore that American spirit doing exactly what he said to do, which is civic ritual. And the 250th gives us the perfect opportunity for that civic ritual. Now, we need 5 million informed patriots and 100,000 Constitution coaches to make this happen. That may sound like a lot, but we've already put 1 million people through these Constitution courses, and we already have 30,000 Constitution coaches. So with your help, with 100 organizations, with your donation, and with your organization stepping in to deploy this through your organization, we can make this happen. We can rebuild liberty across the fruited plain. Join us at Patriot Academy. Go to patriotacademy.com and help us rebuild liberty just in time for the 250th.
Penny, I just crack up. Like, this is such evidence that God is real. I don't know how you deny it, because how else do you go from just, I'm just a mom. I had a normal life. I knew nothing about government, politics, nothing. Poster child for the problem of America. Early 40s, living life, checked out American. And now I'm in the flipping curriculum. What? This is insane. It's an honor. Hopefully I don't get edited out in the actual curriculum, because we had a blast filming that live, and Rick was giving me a hard time afterwards because the first question he asked me was just, I wasn't expecting, a little bit butchered, and we got a good kick out of it. We had fun. So we'll see what it looks like. July 4th launch. Keep an eye out for my next class. We're in the middle right now, wrapping up Foundations of Freedom. That's been really good. We've had a great turnout, good attendance, and I just love studying the founding documents with fellow patriots and explaining to people what your rights are, because if you don't exercise those 5 freedoms in the First Amendment, you will lose them. That's what we teach at Patriot Academy, which brings me to think I should probably get Rick Green, see if I can get Rick to come on an episode here of the Audit the Vote podcast and talk more about about what Patriot Academy is doing. Kelly Ann, thank you. That's what I try to be. I feel like that is what I'm here for, that God raised me up so that I could just use my voice. I do have speaking experience, so I'm not new to speaking in front of people. I am relatively new to the camera. I was not, doing videos and interviews and news person at all before this, but I did do a lot of public speaking. And so that's why I feel like God helped me kind of hone that skill set before getting into politics in 2020. And now he's just using me to go around and inspire other people to say, hey, you get involved. You never know. I took Constitution Live in 2020 with Karen Taylor, my co-founder of Audit the Vote. And 11 months later, we were having dinner with President Trump talking about how we're going to fix elections in Pennsylvania. Like, what? It doesn't get any wilder than that. So I hope that I'm inspiring people to get involved. That is the whole goal, because no one person is going to save us. I'm just going through some of the comments before we continue here on our updates. Kellyanne, thank you for the Bucks County information. I thought it was really interesting. I did a post today. And by the way, I don't want to hammer on early vote action and Scott Pressler a whole lot tonight. One thing we are going to agree on moving forward with Lisa Popel, I agree with you in the chat. Very disappointed that Josh Prince lost. Wolford, now I remember hearing that. An environmental government lawyer, great. But you know what? Let's just shake it off, breathe, get to work, keep educating people, doing whatever activism area that you feel called to be in. Let's just keep going and take one day at a time. That's how we've gotten this far. People say, how do you do it? I would go one day at a time, and sometimes one election cycle at a time, or one event. What's the next thing that we're going to? We will be, if you don't know this, I should have given Joel something so he could pull it up. It's okay, Joel, that you don't have it. General Flynn is coming too, and I know he's a lightning rod and a loaded topic, and some people love him and some people hate him and all that other mess. He is coming, though, with his America's Futures organization to the Pittsburgh area on June the 7th to do an event focusing on child trafficking. And regardless of how you feel about him, I'm fairly certain everybody agrees that pedophiles are not a good thing. And we need to be aware of how it's working so we can protect our children. And that's going to be June 7th. Christ Church at Grove Farm is where they're hosting that, which is really in my backyard, about 10 to 15 minutes away. And so just Google that, look at, hoping to see some of you there. I will be there intermittently. My daughter has dance recital that weekend. But we will have Audit the Vote representation. Barb Harris, Becky Gallagher, and others that they're recruiting are going to be there running the table of Audit the Vote, and probably a Patriot Academy table as well. So we will be there to support that event. Would love for you to come out and see us. Thank you guys so much for, I can already tell you're sharing this because my live views are higher than they normally are. So a lot of people must have shared the video, hit like and subscribe. So thank you. Thank you. Mark, good to see you. Assuming you won your school board race. Do I want to make assumptions? I don't know. I know you're running for a school board out there in the Green Tree, Eric Carnegie. I think Chartiers Valley is your school district. Hoping that you got through there. Shane Cheshire. We had a lot of wins. Okay, so the Prince, it sucks. But if we're going to keep morale high so that we can continue to move forward and make a difference, we have to focus on the wins, or train your brain to focus on the wins so you're motivated. Shane Cheshire, who we are going to get on this podcast sometime in next month, took our Constitution class in 2021, ran for school board in, I think, Highland Park. Yesterday, it was his second or third run for school board. We'll have him talk about that when he comes on the podcast. Got into medical activism, got fired from Allegheny County, ended up organizing a group of citizens to sue the county and won because he didn't want to take the COVID jab, got fired, and he won, and he got a settlement. And now he's on the school board for Highland Park. So totally embodies our values of bringing biblical foundation into the school districts. And that's going to be a huge win. So we had a ton of wins across the board, and I think we need to focus on those. I'm assuming he did win. Yes. So Mark, you're going to be a position in the general. So now we got to shift. What do we do now? We got to shift our focus to November and get more educated. That is my biggest takeaway from yesterday. And Barb, thank you for watching. My poll mate, the minority inspector yesterday that I sat next to, and we had a great time working the polls yesterday. Exhausted, by the way, at the end of the day, completely exhausted. And what was I going to say about that? Lost my train of thought. When a position, the general. So her and I talked all day, and a lot of us agree that we just need more educated voters. We had people come out yesterday. This is the saddest thing for me. Joel, the House bill link I sent you is not working. That's okay. We'll talk about that in a second. You voted for him, Tom. Look at you guys. If you're not connected, get connected. You met each other watching the Audit the Vote podcast together. That is awesome. Can't wait to attend. Barb, I'm losing my train of thought. My thoughts are all over the place. Come on, so I don't lose voters. Yes, Kelly Ann, we do keep fighting voters, so I don't lose viewers. We do keep fighting. Where was I going with this? Oh, breaks my heart to see people come into a primary that are not affiliated or they're independents, and you have to turn them away because Pennsylvania is a closed primary state. Another loaded topic we'll debate another time. I know the arguments on both sides. I do fall inside of thinking it's better to keep them closed. Lots of debate on that. Not going to do that tonight. All that to say, though, most people don't know the difference. That a closed primary means you have to be registered Republican or Democrat in order to show up, which is quite frankly why I stay registered Republican. I feel like my values are much more constitutional conservative. I would almost rather register independent because of the corruption that's so deep on both sides. I can't stand either one really when it comes to the politics, but I can't vote in my primaries if I'm not something. And so the independents, we had to think, Barb, if it was at least 3 of them come, and it's so heartbreaking that we're struggling to get turnout. It's so stinking low. And these people, how do they find out? This is what we should have done yesterday. How do they find out there's an election? What issue are they following that brought them to the polls? And then they don't know that they have to be registered Democrat or Republican to cast a ballot. And we had to turn them away. That like totally broke my heart. So we have to get those people educated for November. So what do? We got to start outreach. We got to hit fairs and everything throughout the summer to let people know about November. There is an election. And one thing that we do align, thankfully, that early vote action is pushing. So Scott Pressler and I won't beat each other's throat. Oh, he doesn't care. He's just ignoring me. But I won't be pounding on him all summer, as I'm very thankful that he's pushing people to vote no on the retention races in the Supreme Court on November. So everything we just saw in the primary, school boards, city councils, township supervisors. I know there were Montgomery and Philadelphia and one other county had a ballot measure question. I don't know how that turned out. We'll have to do some research. And if you're not following us on your social media platform of choice, do that, because as soon as we get the results, we'll be putting that stuff out there. There was a lot of stuff on this, and it was difficult to find information on candidates. That was one of the biggest complaints I heard from people on the ground, is that I couldn't get a hold of my school board guy. Or, honestly, our city council in my little district area, there were 3 people for 4 positions. The one guy that actually came into the polling place, I won't throw him under the bus yet by mentioning his name. He came into the polling place. I recognized his name and said, "You're the guy that's on the ballot." And he seemed like very disinterested, didn't really care if he was going to try to get my vote or not. Thought, well, that's a little odd that you don't, you're not friendly and you're on the ballot for city council. Are you that confident that you're going to win? But whatever. We got to find out what's on, who these people are now that made it through the primary. What is at stake in November? And depending on where you're at, it's different across the board. So not everybody has the same exact things. School boards are kind of all over the place. Some you can, some you can't. So town halls, people, we talked yesterday we got to host some town halls in the summer, some barbecues. Let's get excited about celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence next summer by previewing and getting people educated this summer, and get our butts in gear, get educated, get these candidates in front of the people and ask them hard questions. What I want to know from a school board, this is all I want to know from a school board. I will vote for you if you are against men in the women's bathroom or boys going in the girls' bathroom, and you are against men playing in women's sports. Or can we those are my 2 big things. How did you feel about masking kids? Did you think they should have been forced masked back when COVID was happening? And did you think they should have continued to stay locked down? Those 4 questions I think still apply tremendously moving forward. That's what I want to know from the school board member. I realize there's a lot more to it. Fiscal responsibility issues, how they're going to spend the money. There's way more decisions. Moms for Liberty, one of my favorite groups that deals with school boards and gets people trained up of how to run and how to pass good policy once you get on there. Yes, there's a ton more, but I think those are 4 pretty simple questions that we can get the school board candidates, ask them, and it puts them on the spot and tells you where they're at real quick. So we need to do that before November. I know that I'm going to be working in my local area. Kelly, good to see you. Kelly Stedge, 100% this, Tony. Kelly is one of my people. She ran a write-in campaign, texted me and said, "You inspired me to do this." Kelly, that makes to quote our favorite friend. Oh, my heart sings. It does my heart good, though, to see that she did a write-in campaign and got actually ability to get on the ballot for judge and majority inspector. And she's walking example of what we need to do. And we got to educate our voters. So do some town halls this summer. Host a Patriot Academy class, do something. PatriotAcademy.com, sign up to be a host. It's free. You get access to all the curriculum, and have a barbecue or a fire outside and do one of their classes and get your community educated and involved. It is no longer time to sit on the sidelines. Do you think they're not going to try another COVID at some point? Hopefully our generation has seen the last of that insanity, but they're going to pull it on the next one, on my three girls. And so we have got to educate people so that they are better prepared when they try that crap again, whatever that generation's thing is going to be. Let's pass the torch of freedom intact to them by educating them. I'm trying to go through the chat to see what we're going to be talking about. Before I do any more chats, I don't want to forget this. I wanted to keep tonight to an hour. There is a horrific bill that passed the Senate called HB 1396. It is awful for elections. It hit Seth Keshel actually messaged me, which we got to get him back on here soon. There it is, House Bill 1396, sponsored by Joanna McClinton, who is a far lunatic lefty, probably does support allowing men to play in women's sports and boys to go in the girls' bathrooms that are dealing with gender dysphoria and confusion. No. She co-sponsored or sponsored this bill. It's terrible. It will completely destroy our elections. It passed the House because the Democrats have a 1-seat majority in the Pennsylvania House right now. 1-seat majority, which means you and I have to stay super vigilant to make sure nothing slides through the cracks. Because how they do this is how this works, is it'll pass the House, it'll hit the Senate, and then they'll try to start negotiating. And the Senate will go, well, maybe if we can get some voter ID, or maybe if we can ban drop boxes, or maybe if we can do something good, we'll negotiate. There's no negotiating on this one. It's terrible. It must die in the Senate. So when Seth sent it to me and said, what's the deal with this? I said, this is a hot mess, and we have to make sure that the Senate stops it. And if they don't, they're going to get tarred and feathered. I'm of course kidding, because I don't advocate for violence, but that's how important this is. Reach out to your senator. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. Reach out to your senator and tell them, kill HB 1396. Do not let this go any further than wherever it stops right now in the Senate. It'll probably go to the state government committee. I don't know off the top of my head who the chair of that committee is in the Senate. It will be a Republican. Actually, is it still Chris Dush? It might still be Chris Dush. Regardless of how you feel about him, please message him, message the people on that committee. They are the ones that will decide if this bill moves or goes anywhere. I think it's dead. That's what I've heard, but we have to stay vigilant. So if you have a few extra minutes, send an email right on their social media. They hate that. Their Facebook pages. I hate Facebook. Don't even get me started on Facebook, for crying out loud. My old account was hacked. I had it built up to 5,500 followers. It's been the biggest nightmare, but I'm on there because that's how we reach people. And our elected representatives have to have government accounts, and they aren't allowed, as long as you're not being threatening or cussing. Actually, that might even, I don't know if they're allowed to delete that or not. As long as you are respectful, it's illegal for them to delete their constituents' comments on there. And they hate it because that is so public. So get on Facebook and write on their social medias. If you're completely anti-Facebook, I'm not going to argue with you over that because I totally get it. That's what we were beating up on them when Audit the Vote was really early and the election integrity stuff was hot off the press in 2021. Even going into early 2022, and we really thought we were going to get in a full audit. We were going to expose everything. We were going to get answers to all our questions, and there was a possibility we weren't going to have to live through a Biden presidency for 4 years, or whoever was running the show. Now it's coming out that it wasn't him. Duh. Like, we didn't know that. How retarded do they think we are that we didn't know that Biden wasn't running the show? So my question is, who was? We'll get into that a little bit later. Rothman blocked you? Oh, we got to look into that one, because I hear that Rothman is meeting with Mr. Pressler on June the 7th. They're going to be talking, and I think he's leaning towards embracing the early vote action mail ballot shenanigans. So we got to work to try to stop that. But again, what I agree with early vote action is no on those retention races for Supreme Court. And I'm going to explain why. What do we do now is we work to change hearts and minds. We educate the voters on what's on the ballot, start to meet the candidates, find out. we need voter guides desperately. I'm not sure how we're going to tackle that. There's a lot of organizations that do great voter guides for national elections, but nothing locally. Nothing. It was really hard to find sample ballots. I was the night before the election. If you're on social media, you saw a post that went out that had, for as many counties as I could find, the link to where you could see your sample ballot the night before the election. I'm like, how are we scrambling still 5 years into this? We should be so much better prepared. So that's on my unending list of things to tackle, is get good local voter guides. In the meantime, at least know who's on your ballot, and ask a trusted person in your neighborhood who had a Trump sign in their yard. You know, that's pretty easy to tell who's who now, who they're voting for. Do they know the candidates? And we need to dig into that before November. The big thing on the race, though, this is why the Supreme Court, I'm aligning 110% with early vote action. I'm thankful for Scott's voice on this, that he's telling people vote no on those 3 retention races. This is why I'm not excited. I do not think normalizing mail ballots is the right path. And we've talked extensively about that. I'm not going to get into super detail about that. I think I did start talking about Bucks County, though. I was going to tell you guys. Bucks County flipped red, supposedly flipped red with registrations, right? Which it did. But if you look at the turnout just from yesterday, the Democrat candidates had over 12,000 more people show up at the polls in Bucks County than the Republicans. 12,000. So what good is voter registration and flipping votes, flipping counties red, if they're not showing up? And I maintain, with plenty of evidence to back it up, that the mail-in ballots is not the way to go, because you are feeding the system that gave us 2020. And there are better ways to increase turnout. The GOP, why aren't we renting buses? Why aren't we getting specific plans of who the voters are? What campaign, when you have someone that wants to run for office, have you ever, think about this for a second, and it's not to make people feel bad that you worked with them, volunteered for them. If you helped register voters and you helped people get ballots in hands and turn out to vote, please hear my heart. I'm not criticizing you, but I'm just trying to give you some truth in the reality of the situation. That doesn't win elections. Anytime anyone says, I'm going to run for an office, have you ever heard a campaign person go, you know what? We need a plan to register voters. No, that's not what they do. They go, all right, who are our super voters? That's where you start. Who are our low propensity voters? Let's figure out how we're going to get these people out. They don't focus on voter registration. So I'm sorry if that offends you, but it is what it is. Look at the turnouts. Counties that flip, even ours in Beaver, that flipped red. We're in a red county. Take a look at our turnout. The Democrats dwarfed us. They had way more people show up than the Republicans. We've got to figure out how to increase turnout. And I don't necessarily have that answer full bore, but I will say this. How are we doing on time? 37 minutes. Those Supreme Court, the path to get rid of mail-in ballots in Act 77 is this, in my opinion. We get rid of those 3 Supreme Court judges in November. Wecht, Doherty, can't remember the third one off the top of my head. If somebody does, throw it in the chat. And we can refile the lawsuit that the Commonwealth Court, Joel, I think I sent you that link. So if I did, the Act 77 ruling from the Commonwealth Court back in 2021, they ruled properly. The way that Act 77 was passed in Pennsylvania, that's the law that gave us these no excuse mail ballots and 50 days where you can show up at your election office and actually vote. It's a horrific bill. It was passed in 2019, late 2019, before 2020. Tons of Republicans. There were only 2 Republicans that voted no. David Zimmerman is one. I can't remember the name of the other guy that didn't vote for Act 77. That, if we could get rid of that law, that would be a miracle for election integrity. We're not going to do it through the state legislature, and certainly not while Shapiro is sitting in the governor's seat. But it wasn't passed constitutionally, meaning it should have gone on the ballot as a referendum for the voters to decide before it got enacted into law. According to the Pennsylvania Constitution, if you're going to change the election code, that drastically, the referendum needs to go on the ballot for the voters. So we had some brave legislators at the time bring that in a lawsuit, which they spent $6 million on, by the way, brought a lawsuit, started in the Commonwealth Court. And I can't remember the exact month, but there was a ruling. The Commonwealth Court basically said, yes, this was not passed constitutionally. It did not go on the ballot as a referendum for the voters, and therefore it's gone. And we were, those that have been following us, we were party time, man, because we were like, we're done. We have no early voting. The mail ballots are gone. This is beautiful. Of course, I think the link that I sent you, Joel, is an article from why. Oh, it was a duplicate. Oh my gosh. just Google, how stupid is that? I might have put it on the wrong link. Google Commonwealth Court rules against Act 77, and it'll pull up a link because I just wanted the dates and to show people. The path to this is Governor Wolf appealed it instantly. Of course, heaven forbid we just let the Constitution speak or the judges on the Commonwealth Court. He appealed it to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And of course, it was then overturned by none other than the 3 judges who are up for retention. Quite frankly, I don't know how the Democrats are going to combat this. I really don't. What are they going to pull out their good rulings? Are they going to, I don't know. I think we got a really, really, really good shot because these guys have been given horrific ruling after horrific ruling since COVID, allowing the state to stay shut, allowing the masks to be forced on the kids. They are legislating from the bench. They have not ruled according to the Constitution. They are the reason why President Trump, none of his cases got heard on the merits. No evidence was able to be submitted from the Trump campaign in 2020 because these 3 specific judges said that he didn't have standing. So they have just been doing really, really bad things left and right. And if we get rid of them and we elect new Supreme Court judges, which, by the way, we lost the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania back in 2015 when these 3 guys took the bench, which is why 10 years later, here we are, we can get rid of them. Let's get some newbies back in there that know the Constitution. That's a good question, by the way, for judge candidates. What can you name the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment? When was the Constitution ratified? Like, do they know anything about it? That's good, because a lot of them don't. Just pro tip there. When we go to educate or when we go to get new judges on the Supreme Court, we got to have questions ready and get ones that know the Constitution and will rule according to the Constitution. And we can raise enough awareness. We have the momentum in the state to do this. I truly believe that. And when we get those new judges on the PA Supreme Court, we can refile the lawsuit and they can take another look at it and they can rule according to the and reverse the previous ruling from the Supreme Court because we have court precedent. It was ruled in our favor in the Commonwealth Court. And so they can change the ruling. We can refile the lawsuit. And if that happens, boom, baby. Act 77 gone. No excuse mail-in ballots gone. 50 days of early voting gone. Back to sanity in our elections. And that is the path that Audit the Vote is going to take and advocate for moving forward. To get rid of Act 77, we are not going to normalize the use of mail ballots. That doesn't mean at the same time that I'm telling you that if you go out of town or you're dealing with an illness or let's see, all the normal reasons why we had absentee voting, I'm not saying don't do it. Make a plan. Of course, if you know you're going on vacation for a primary election, especially, yes, make sure you get a mail ballot and vote. I would recommend taking it into the election office so you're not trusting the mail because stuff gets lost in the mail all the time. Vote, take it to your election office. I'm not saying we don't use them ever. Or I even had someone today, I think on Audit the Vote say, you know, I had family that forgot about the election and they didn't vote. And if they had gotten a mail-in ballot, maybe they would have voted. Okay, I see that line of reasoning. I'm still going to maintain that it is riskier for fraud. I don't think the benefit of that family potentially voting outweighs the risk that could be stolen, that funky things are going on with the mail ballots. I still disagree, but why then what you could have done is made sure as a precinct committee person to Lola Days' point in here, who's hammering the precinct strategy. Yeah, if you're a committee person, you need to make sure that you're turning out your precinct area, which is typically, at least in my case, about 500 households, getting out the vote in your area. And so, yeah, if you know people aren't going to be around on election day or they're iffy, then help them. Make sure you get their vote in. But I don't think it needs to be the blanket strategy across the board. We're just going to embrace it big time, put mail-in ballots in every low propensity voter's hands, push that, because the trend has shown us in the data, which we're going to analyze the primary to and see what happened here. The trend is Republicans that are voting by mail are not voting for the Republican candidate. It's happened race after race after race. The only one that it was different in was Trump in 2024. Without Trump on the ticket, that is a losing strategy. That's what all the data shows all the way back to 2020. Just look at how many Republicans requested, returned, and then how many votes the Republican candidate got. And every time the Democrat gets more votes than Democrat ballots that came back, Republicans get less votes than Republican that came back. So when they're not even voting that way, whether it's fraud, which is possible, or It's propaganda from USAID money that is now hyper targeting those low propensity voters, knowing they can flip them. Regardless, it's not working. The only time it worked was Trump. And I would argue that that's a darn miracle. And we also put out data to show that it wasn't the early voting or the mail ballots that even gave him the flipping victory. It was the turnout and the people that worked to stop them from stealing it. So I won't get on that soapbox tonight. Joel, I guess he wasn't able to Google the Act 77. I might not have even stuck that in the chat for you. Sorry about that, buddy. And that's okay. But Google that. Act 77, Commonwealth Court ruling, and you will see that... I did give you the wrong one. Totally did. Copy and pasted the wrong one. You will see what I'm talking about in terms of being able to refile that lawsuit and shooting down Act 77, regardless of how the 2026 governor race goes. So if Josh Shapiro gets reelected and we don't take back the House, boom, we can still get rid of Act 77, not normalizing mail-in ballots in the process. I'm going to check the chat and see the last thing. I think I talked pretty good. If anybody has questions about the election, let me check the chat. And we're going to end on Bongino and Kash Patel, because I'm also, my inbox is blowing up on that. And by the way, too, I'm getting better and more organized. I'm so sorry if you sent me an email and I did not get back to you yet. I'm working on that. What I'm going to try to do is compile those questions throughout the week that I don't get back to and address them on the podcast. So that's how I know kind of what to talk about, is I'm getting emails at people asking about Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. Why is nothing happening? Holy crap, that Epstein killed himself. Really? Are we really going to believe that? We're going to play that and talk about that. But let me go back and make sure that I've answered everybody. Yeah, right, Mark? No boys and girls sports. No taxes, property taxes. Mark, I know Mark Dodson that's in the chat fought his butt off to eliminate property taxes in Pennsylvania years ago, way before I was active. And I think Carrie Benninghoff is the one that killed that, who is still a House rep, by the way, still in there. Great. You know why? Because primaries. We're not taking advantage of the primaries. That is our chance as patriots to mobilize and get rid of the people that are not representing us. Primaries. And again, I don't know how we fix this. I just know it needs fixed, and we need to get together and figure out how to fix it. So people are talking about 100 on the school board questions, Nikki, right? Like that's all I want to know, man. Like, do you support boys in the girls' bathroom and men and women's sports? Just blanket. I want that answer. And that's real easy. Ours right in a D mayor on an R ticket and the BOE says it counts. That is actually, Kelly. Yes, that can happen. How's if we can't vote outside? You can do, so I know this because my family, I grew up in a JFK Democrat household. My mom was a registered Democrat. She lived with us for 5 years before she passed away, and she voted by mail for the reasons that you're supposed to, because she couldn't physically get to the polls. And so when she got her Democrat ballot, she wrote in, she did not want to vote for the Democrat candidates. So she wrote in, we looked at the sample Republican. She decided how she wanted to vote, and she wrote them in on her Democrat primary ballot. And as long as you fill in the bubble, here's the kicker, which hopefully the poll workers will know, you have to fill in the bubble next to the write-in and write the name in. And that is totally legit and can be done. So it sounds like they did that. Ours wrote in a D mayor on the R ticket. That to us, of course, is backwards because that's not the side we're on, but you can do it that way. Yes, Penny, it was difficult, it was difficult across the board. Precinct strategy off the top of my head is probably the best way to fix that, is just to get involved in your local party. Although I do know that the party's jacked up all over the state in multiple places. There's counties that it's just a hot mess. I get it. I just think it's community. We figure out a way to build community, barbecues, gatherings. That's why I'm a big proponent. That's why I work for Patriot Academy, because those courses give you something that you can gather together with like-minded people, or just even gather together with people and start a discussion. Building community, I think, is how we do this. I think so. I've heard Josh Prince is thinking about running as an independent. And I mean, we're basically, I'm not saying one way or the other. I wish I voted for Josh, obviously went hardcore and even did a bunch of videos thinking we were gonna social media was gonna get the word out and he was gonna vote, people were gonna vote that way, and that's not really how it turned out. If he runs as an independent, I mean, it's going to give it to the Democrat, which Wolford isn't a whole lot better. I don't really have a strong opinion on that one way or the other. I know, Linda, right? So the independents that showed up at our poll, what we did is educated them and encouraged them to consider picking a party so that they could vote in the primaries. We just educated them on that and let them know that we're a closed primary state. And since we are, and I just shared my personal story, like, well, I don't know if probably weren't allowed to do but I was sharing it with our poll workers. Actually, I did not share that with voters because you're not allowed to do that. But when the voters left, I told my fellow poll workers, I think, Barb, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're still watching, that I registered Republican. I fought very hard when I got involved after 2020 about changing to independent after seeing the corruption, but I stayed Republican so I could vote in the primary. So that's what you can do when they come into the poll. Of course, it's today. And but if you, and in our case, if you remember who they were, if you were behind the desk and we're writing down names, this is education key. The fix being local, judge of elections, working the polls. I got the job of writing down the voter's name as they came in. The voter has to give you their name because they have to sign the poll book. And then there's supposed to be a clerk that's actually keeping a numbered list of who is showing up. This is how we stop any steal or fraud on the ground election day at the local level. And a lot of this went horribly awry in 2020 and didn't happen. But so if you have the list of people and you know your community and you remember who the name was of the person that came in, you could probably try to find them on social media. Maybe that's borderline stalking. I'm not sure. I would just call it community organizing and activism, getting in touch with them after the fact and letting them just follow up. Hey, have you thought about registering one party or the other so you can vote next time? We have to get more aggressive, maybe aggressive, because I hate to think of myself as aggressive, outspoken in this area to educate people. Let's see. What else am I looking at? Thank you for emailing your senators. Joel, cue up the video so we can start looking at this Epstein Cash stuff, because I am as shocked. Lisa, can you guess how much the leftist? Don't start it yet. Wait. Can you guess how much the leftist speaker makes per year? I know they do pretty well. She's a House rep. She's making six figures. I don't know if she's at 150. I mean, just shoot me if she's at 200, but I know that as a House rep coming in, you get a six-figure salary, I believe. So that's fun. Linda, yes. Remember when the Trib had articles about the candidates in their local Star Weekly paper? The problem is all of by the way, my Democrat judge of elections said this yesterday, admitted when people came in that were frustrated that they couldn't find information, that our local papers are no longer unbiased. They are all left-leaning. There is no local paper you can get anymore that will tell you who the candidates are and just facts, straight facts. I think social media has pretty much taken that role over. And again, town halls and getting involved are the answer. Democrat PA Speaker Joanna McClinton makes a salary of $171,000 a year. Let that sink in for a second, folks. She's getting almost $200,000 a year to push her leftist, lunatic, progressive policies in the state of Pennsylvania. Holy crap, Lisa. All right. Let me see. Tabitha, hi there. Yes, Kelly is correct. If the Supreme Court judge says, even if we vote no, they're still stuck there till 2027. But if you vote no on retention, it pushes it back to an election cycle. They have to go out and campaign, and we can boot them that way. So they'll have to get primaried, Kelly, it sounds like. Which again, so we got to prepare now. Let's learn our lesson. We didn't get out enough. We weren't staying actively engaged. We have to figure out this whole primary. How do we get people to get out in the primary? Because that's how we can get rid of those judges. Refile Act 77 lawsuit. And that's if something doesn't happen. There's obviously activist ways. We could do that through the legislature. Shapiro's never going to sign it to get rid of Act 77. So that's a lost cause in my view. I think this is our best path. Liberty Line, YouTube did not send you a reminder. Well, that stinks. Yep, we're not going to pound Pressler. I've did plenty of that today on social media. We're not going to do that tonight because I get it. There's people working hard that have had good experiences with him, think he's doing good work. Let's just leave that alone for right now. Nikki, my email is tony@auditthevotepa.com. If that's who you were asking for. I love this chat. Keep blowing it up. This is awesome. We're going to end up going over an hour, Joel. That's okay. So I can get through all of these comments. Yes, we did, Barb. We did educate them. We need to follow up. No, hoping they remember. We have to go through that book you have because you have the Barb was a minority inspector. The minority inspector, by the way, takes the numbered list of voters home and has to keep it for 2 years. So Barb literally has the list of everybody's name of who showed up at the polls. And part of our strategy is we have to go through that and get connected with those people because those are our super voters. Those are the ones that cared enough to come out. Now, the independents, we didn't write their names down. I should have. Note to self for next time. The independent, Elaine, good to see you, girl. The independent caucus is considering a write-in for Josh in the general. I just don't have a strong, I'm not going to say do it, don't do it. That's technically going to, I think it would basically give it to the Democrat, although argument could be made that Wolford is Democrat light. So what's the difference? Might be worth a shot. Again, I'm not going to speak to that or give a strong opinion one way or the other. And okay. Kash Patel. Is anybody else like fuming about Kash Patel? And because my inbox is blowing up. And Dan Bongino saying that Epstein killed himself. It's legit. They have all the evidence. Joel, you can roll the clip. Oh, look at that. The chat can show up on screen. Huh. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell if you haven't already. Thank you. You guys have clearly shared this. Either that or people are just paying better attention because we just had an election yesterday. Yeah, Joel, pull that up and we'll start going through this.
People don't believe it. Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work, but you promoted Stephen Jensen.
Anybody else feel like you just got punched in the gut? Epstein didn't get. Okay, now I will answer these. You guys are still throwing questions, which is good. I'll answer those, but I'm inundated with this. For those losing their minds about this, is where I'm holding out hope. Okay, I don't know what to think. Quite frankly, I'm a little confused. I loved Kash before all of this. I'm starting to wonder about Kash. I'm still holding on to hope that Bongino. I've seen the theories on, what if his wife and daughter what if they threatened him, that they'd go after his wife and daughter. He went into this. This is my experience. My husband has been watching Dan Bongino for ages. I really like Dan. Dan is like a much smaller version of Trump. He left a very lucrative career that he worked very hard to build with his podcast and all his other stuff to take a government job, not be able to speak out and have to deal with this trash that he's dealing with. That couldn't have been an easy decision. I don't think he's easily compromised. And I think because of his experience in the Secret Service that he had before, he had to have known what he was up against. He had to have taken measures to protect his wife and daughter before he went in there. He knew what he was doing. And I don't think the guy is easily compromised. And I'm just holding out some hope that something's going on that's in our favor. I started thinking today, he does look stressed, doesn't he, Barb? He looks wigged out. A lot of people are saying, "Ooh, look at his body language. He's lying." Nah, you're not going to sell me on that yet. I'm willing to take a breath and have some faith first in Jesus that he is guiding these decisions by these people, but that Bongino's character is stronger than that. And is it possible he killed himself? Well, I'm just saying, if I were him, that's what I'd have done. He was about to be outed to the world. Now, let's wait and see with the evidence. I am very frustrated that we do not have the client list yet, or I just want to see who was paying them. That's all I want to know. Who was paying? This is pretty simple. I know they are saying that they can't release the victims. They want to protect the victims, and that's why they're having to hold on to all this stuff, and that's great. But why can't you just tell us who his clients were? The money transfers from them to him. That's pretty clear. So I feel the frustration. I totally do. But I'm just willing to give it a little more time because of what I just walked through with Bongino. So hang in there, you guys. Breathe. Pray for these people when you feel like you want to give up. Maybe that's God telling you to say an extra prayer. I'm sure we can't even imagine what they're up against right now. Bongino, no way are you going to convince me that he is easily corruptible. He had to know they were going to threaten his wife and daughter, that this wasn't going to be easy. And he's not stupid. So he had to have planned for that. I don't think they're lying either, Barb. I just think there's got to be more to it. Like, who knows what happened that led him to do that? I know there was no cameras. There's so much shady stuff. Take a breath. Here's my advice. Take a breath. Pray for those guys. Pray for the truth to come out. And hey, we came this far. Like, I know we're all tired of waiting, but what else better do you have to do? Get involved locally, take a breath, pray, and just keep watching. Right, Nikki, me too. I probably give too much mercy to people when I shouldn't. It's just my nature, but I can't imagine what they're dealing with either. And I'm not going to blanketly say, okay, he killed himself. I'm saying let's wait and see what evidence. We haven't seen what they've seen. So until we do, that's what I'm praying for. Let that stuff come out. Like, Joel, is there something else you wanted to play, like a clip or whatever that we were going to walk through? Because I'm frustrated that Kash said something about, January 6th, that's on its way to Congress. Oh, great. Where everything goes to die. like quicksand in the swamp pit of despair. Great. Send it to Congress. That'll go nowhere. No, we want you guys to put it out. I think it was the January 6th stuff. They were talking about the truth. Oh, I know. It was the question. If you have the video, Joel, let's play it. It's still early. I know it's still early. Kim, I know a Secret Service agent that retired after Obama started and he drove the limo. He said so much more is happening than we would ever know. And I agree with that. But I'm also level-headed enough to not go so far down the conspiracy rabbit hole that you believe stuff that's like outlandish. Not even anything is possible, but there has to be enough evidence to convince me that something is what it is. There has to be, in a court of law, you need two credible eyewitnesses to have a story that corroborates itself before you can comfortably say, yes, I believe this or I believe that. And those two guys on screen are pretty credible eyewitnesses to me. So I'm not going to get all hung up. They said they saw the evidence and he killed himself. I say we wait and see what they saw.
There is, it seems that I find myself in a similar situation as Russiagate. Because on January 6th, in the prior Trump administration, I was the chief of staff to the Department of Defense. And I spent 4 years and a minor fortune litigating the truth because people politicized what actually happened on January 6th. And we now know unequivocally that President Trump lawfully authorized the deployment of National Guard. And me, as the head of the Office of Secretary of Defense, with the Secretary of Defense, took that action. When it finally came in, because it had to have the governor and mayor of D.C.'s approval on it. That's the way the law works. And once it finally came in on January 6th, remember, we offered to them days beforehand and they rejected it. We've put out the letters and your show has done great coverage showing how it was rejected. We mobilized the fastest cold start in Washington, D.C. since World War II and the largest occupation of D.C. by the National Guard since the American Revolution. That's what happened on January 6th. But what you and your viewers want to know, now that we've beat back that disinformation campaign with actual truth, is what was the FBI doing? Well, we got answers coming. We just found a trove of information and it's on its way to Capitol Hill right now. And they've asked and they're getting them and you're getting answers on January 6th. You're getting answers on what sourcing was utilized, what money was utilized, how many assets were utilized, who made those decisions. You're getting it. We can only control the FBI, but you're getting it from the FBI.
But it's going to Congress.
FBI agents undercover egging people on.
Like I said, that answer is coming. And it's on its way to Congress.
So frustrating.
I saw it. I saw the portfolio of information. We dug far and wide to find it. And I'm pretty sure now we have a conclusive, definitive answer. But you and the public are going to have it. You're going to see it in writing over to Capitol Hill. But I just want to be sure we're clear, having been an agent and a police officer. There is a difference between an agent, I know you know this, I don't mean to sound ridiculous. an agent, meaning a trained GS 1811 federal agent, and a source or an asset, there's a difference. So when you see the material, which I promise you is coming, again, I'm not asking you to trust us. I know it's coming because I saw it yesterday. When you see it, I just want you to understand that it's not an apology for anything.
Thank you.
But there's a difference between agents and assets. Yeah. And I just hope when people put that information out there, they make the distinction. Not that it's better or worse, but there's a distinction there.
It's a very important distinction.
And I want to level set here. I want the American public to go back and look at what our predecessors stated.
So stop this for a second, Joel. I want to comment as we wind down. I know I said an hour, but we have a lot of people watching. So, and yesterday was an election. So the Capitol, yeah, it's going to Capitol Hill. That's great. That's what concerns me more than anything. It's going to Capitol Hill. Okay. Because we trust them. I want to hear you guys. So I'm a little more concerned about this than I am about the Epstein thing. The Epstein's dead and gone. Let's just hope that stuff, kids are rescued. We can get a handle on it. It's the largest, everyone that saw Sound of Freedom, it's the largest criminal enterprise. Who are the consumers of this? That's what's most disgusting. Consumers of child pornography. I'm sorry, tarred, feathered, hung, whatever. That's what needs to happen. And so whether we find out what actually happened with Epstein, I'm not as concerned about as I am stopping the problem to begin with. I hope that's what they're on top of. But the January 6th stuff, Bongino at the end there, I think what he's saying is there's an asset is a provocateur who used to work for the FBI or had ties to the FBI that orchestrated that event in the crowd, that was being used in the crowd, maybe even inside the Capitol Police. There's a difference between that and an FBI agent that's a good guy, that is like would have been what he was when he worked for the Secret Service. I think that's the distinction he's making. And I just hope that we get what they're saying. They're going to release it. What do we got to do? Pray that it gets out before either one of these guys get offed, and have some patience would be my preference. I'm going to try to answer a couple more chat. We can go back to this too in a second. Maria Kovacs says she uses ChatGPT to find out about the candidates and had to dig deep, but found out, for instance, that all the judges that cross-registered to the right are left-leaning hard. So ChatGPT is pretty good at digging for background on candidates. It's a start. I will say that. That's what I used to find a lot of the sample ballot websites that I was posting on our socials. So you could at least get to your ballot based on the county you lived in. It's a start. Careful. Don't rely on it so heavily that you don't do your due diligence. I think if it gets you like their contact info or access to find out who they are, we need to use it as a resource, but not necessarily totally rely on it. Joel's telling me he has I don't know if I want to go down that Tim Tebow sex clip that is amazing on child trafficking. Do we really want to, is it going to make me throw up? I don't know if I want to go down that route. That's how I stay sane about the Epstein stuff, like the JFK files. I just wanted to know as a kid, who the heck shot JFK? Clearly, we're never really going to get a definitive answer on that. Are we ever going to get a definitive answer whether or not Epstein killed himself? Does it matter? Let's find out who the consumers were, hang them to set an example for, if you do this, this is what will happen to you. And so we can try to stop it. I mean, we're never going to. We live in a fallen world. Evil is all around us. We're never going to end evil until Christ comes back and sets everything right. At least that's my biblical worldview. You don't have to agree with it. It's how I feel. Capitol Hill. I know. As soon as they said that, I was like, oh, just punch us in the gut. Why don't you? I don't know about Pam Bondi. Keep in mind too, here's the thing, and pray and stay active. Pam Bondi was not the first choice. Do you remember that? Matt Gaetz was the first choice. So I don't know. I'm going to go back and answer. Jonathan, you had a question. Do County Board of Elections, I think you are in Northumberland, one of those. I know that's the area you're in. You always tell me it and I always forget, but at least now I have a general idea of where you're at. County Board of Elections, do they list how many write-in votes each person got, or only if they are the top write-in vote getter? I believe it depends on your county. I believe that the write-in votes are on the tapes that get printed out from the voting machines. At least that's what I saw in Beaver last night. I think, Barb, you can correct me if I'm in the chat. There is a way to see who they wrote in. I think every county is probably a little bit different. And the best thing you can do is call your Board of Elections and ask them. if they're going to post it. I didn't see it on the website for when we were looking at like your local results, by the way, will be on your county website. They won't be on the Pennsylvania. Maybe you can get to them from there, but I couldn't get to them from there today. I've gotten used to going to Allegheny, Beaver, Butler, Washington on their individual websites to see these real local races, how many votes there were, mail-ins, all that stuff. So go to your county website, look there. If you don't see it, then my recommendation is to call your Board of Elections and ask. I would think, because in Beaver, that's where we see, can't remember now if it says who they wrote in or just how many write-ins there were. Certainly there has to be a way to get to that. And I would say call your county Board of Elections and then let us know what they say so we can share it with other people. Touching and powerful. I know, that's such a tough topic, Joel. I don't really want to go there. I have to do another interview after this. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to wind down. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. If the questions are coming, I'll stay and answer questions as long as we can. Try to tune in every week. We have to get this platform. Again, if I can get these accounts monetized and the views on this can end up being a revenue stream for Audit the Vote, it will help tremendously. Thank you to those that donate to us. Again, whether it was one time or whether you're a continued monthly donor, we encourage you, if you can, to give just a little bit every month. It helps keep the lights on and the operation going. Even our StreamYard, to be able to do this every week, to have all of the bells and whistles that make it pretty and appealing, is $100 a month. So we have a ton of initiatives. We want to get judge of elections. I would love to do billboards for the vote no retention races. All of that is going to take money. Consider a one-time, or especially the recurring monthly donations, even if it's only $5 or $10 a month, makes a difference. But I also want to say, you got to go where your heart, if you feel a tug, if you like our work and you support us and you feel good about what we do, then and only then become a donor. I don't ever want anybody to feel like they were compelled to give us money or sold a bill of goods, if you will. And what bothers me about Pressler is the question. He just doesn't want to be questioned. Ugh, my gosh, he won't even let us ask questions. Nikki, thank you. Click the thumbs up. Moses 114, thank you. Siren, thank you for this. Siren is the new secretary for the Pennsylvania Patriot Coalition that we handed over. Sam Faddis, myself, Pam Denlinger, Bill Allen, and Jeff Kerr handed it over to Ken Lang, Gary Heasley, Brian Fultonovich, and Siren, who is in Lancaster County. She says both write-in and number of votes are listed on the site. So I'm assuming that's for Lancaster, but every county is different. Hopefully it's there. I would think it would have to be. Results weren't listed yet, Jonathan. It should list those out. You got people write you in for school board and you want to see the results. Certainly. Now keep in mind right now, they are reconciling. So not as huge of an issue at the primary, or at least there's not as much attention on it as there is for like a big general election, but they have the counties will certify the election. They have 20 days. That's their deadline, is 20 days to actually certify. So now if you had provisional ballots or people surrendered their mail-ins, all of that stuff, our county election workers are working very hard right now, going through everything and making sure that everybody that voted, there is one piece of paper that was cast for each voter, and that is it. And that again is the problem from 2020, which I will beat the drum forever. If I can ever get in front of Josh Shapiro and bring this to light and ask him questions, your Shore system showed on February 1st of 2021 that there were more than 120,000 ballots cast compared to the turnout of voters, and that went unanswered. You stiff-armed every question we had in the courts. We still don't know how it happened, and yet they want us to buy the lie that Biden won Pennsylvania in 2020. Never going to convince me until you show me the receipts. And they have manipulated the data now, so if you go back and look, their data is now matching everything. Guess what? It didn't at the time, and we have it. So stick it where the sun doesn't shine and answer some questions. I don't know, Nikki. That's a good question. I know Charles is in Beaver County. He's a good egg. Works hard on election integrity stuff, and collaborates with PA Fair Elections quite a bit. I don't know about the relation, but that's a good question. I think that's everything. If we've got a funny video. Linda is saying, let me continue. Yes, they will. Barb is saying they will after it is certified. So 20 days, again, is the deadline. Now, they might finish sooner in a primary that has incredibly low turnout. They might finish the reconciliation process a little bit quicker. and they could certify before 20 days, but 20 days is their deadline. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes on after election day. If you work the polls like us and you came home like, oh my gosh, I was so tired. The election workers that work at your county courthouse are still working, not like election day, probably 12, 14-hour days, maybe in some cases as they are, but they're still working to reconcile. A lot of stuff happens. And I would just want to keep you aware of that, because again, that's where things went awry in 2020. I didn't know that. I didn't know there was a whole process from the first Tuesday in November to get you to the end of January where you inaugurate the president. There is a very specific process to keep us from inaugurating an illegitimate president. And we were just totally ignorant to all of that. And I still don't, when I'm paying attention during a presidential year, I know it really well. I still don't know it as well as I should, but just keep that in mind that it's not necessarily over. In a lot of cases, we have a new House rep from Luzerne County, Jamie Walsh, who made it by the skin of his teeth. They fought for weeks and weeks afterwards. It came down to just a few. I don't know if it was write-ins. I can't remember. Kelly, you might know if it was provisionals. It was a scuffle. He won by like less than 10 votes. And it was this process of reconciliation that they were battling back and forth, whether or not to count provisionals. It's crazy. So we have to stay on things locally and understand what's going on in our backyard. Joel says he has a funny video. I think I got all the questions answered. Yes, and he and I have found each other because of PA fair elections. Oh, good. That's awesome, Nikki. Yeah, that's a big one. And Lisa, I'm thankful because again, I don't really want to fight Scott Pressler. That's not really my objective for the rest of my life, is to fight this guy. But I'm thankful that we can come together with early vote action on that and agree on that. We got to get those judges, get rid of those judges. Dave, what about the Murraysville Council is the deadline to challenge? You have the 20 days. That is your deadline. So after Election Day, you've got 20 days to file lawsuits. I think there's other deadlines if you want to file for recounts. We've tried that before. The state will not give you hand recounts. We tried that after the 2022 midterms because we saw an anomaly on the State Department website where Josh Shapiro was awarded 10 million mail ballots and Mastriano was given 2. And this was at 8:36 p.m. on their website. And so we were kind of like, that's cause for suspicion. Let's see if there's something electronically going on. Of course, they dismiss us as conspiracy theorists and didn't answer any of our questions. So we filed petitions in 33 different counties to open the ballot boxes and just see, is there something going on with the machines? And every judge crossed out, even though the law says that the recount must be done by persons, the law says it specifically. Every judge that it went before, they crossed it out and said, shall count by machines. So we're in a little bit of a pickle there, Dave, where they won't even let us hand recount the paper that is in there. That's why they sold us these stupid machines is, well, they have a paper trail. Yes, but we aren't allowed to touch it. Heaven forbid. And so you have that deadline is different if you wanted to challenge your election and get a recount. It's a shorter deadline. It's not the 20 days. Off the top of my head, I should know this, but I don't. I just know it's quicker. It's within the first week for sure. If you're going to look at a recount, you maybe have a week to file the proper paperwork to do that. Can a candidate hand you a list, Penny asked, of 7 council members written on paper and ask you to vote for? I don't see why not. There's just electioneering. They can't do it inside a polling location. They have to be standing outside at least 10 feet from the door. The only polling location that a candidate is allowed in on election day is their own to vote. Otherwise, they are not allowed inside polling places. Dave, it is $50 to file a petition to open a ballot box. And so the mail-in ballots, I don't think are separate. It would depend on how many polling places you are going to challenge, because the mail-ins, I don't think it's separate in the law. It would apply to the individual because technically that precinct, even though they're counted separately, they're still awarded on a precinct by precinct basis. And so you'd have to file a recount for each individual precinct within whatever district you want to question. And it's $50 to open the ballot box to file that petition. You could end up getting into a little bit more expense depending if you get an attorney. Reach out to me offline. I can answer it better. There's a lot of nuances to that. But we did try that once and we were not as successful as we had hoped, which is why we don't really pursue it anymore. And then our state legislature tried to make law, making it more expensive. Actually, that's what the Democrats, as part of, I think, Joanna McClinton's bill, they want to increase that charge to for recount to make it harder for us to get recounts. And they won't even give us the recount that we need, which is a hand recount. Yes, Lisa, I know them very well. Reach out to me. I don't want to answer it publicly because I think they're great patriots and they fight really hard. I've had an experience I'd be happy to talk about privately. I don't want to throw them under the bus. They're good patriots. Their heart's in the right place and they mean well. We're all learning. I give people a ton of grace and we're all learning. Leah is she is blunt force trauma, rock solid. Like she will just bite your head off and she'll ask questions later and she don't care one way or the other. I'm more of a patient, changing hearts and minds, wanting to at least take my time. We have very different styles and we've butted heads over some things based on our different styles, but I respect what they've done. The fact they put their necks out there and they're still fighting. They're not quitting and they deserve a lot of credit for that. So I will give them that. Brother Pectori, when you go buy a new car, you get a receipt, not I bought a car sticker. I voted sticker. I know. We could debate this stuff for days, you guys, for days. The battle is before us. It is at the local level. It's getting involved. Let's this summer just get on the ground. Precinct project, knock doors, gather with your neighborhood, host barbecues, town halls, find out who the candidates. Once they certify the election, it's going to take 20 days. So I would say early to mid-June, then we'll be able to see who officially is going to be on the November ballot. And we need to start contacting those people and finding out what they stand for, who they are. So we're not scrambling the week before the election. We know to vote no on the judges. We know probably who we're going to vote for, Superior and Commonwealth Court. But what about all those other little races that matter? Let's dig deep this summer into those and figure out who we're going to vote for. Get the word out in your community. And then, 2026 midterms are going to be here. Dear God, I can't even think about it. Midterms are going to be here before we know it. Penny says, our candidates stand in front of the doors and lean against buildings beside door to hand you cards. I couldn't even get to the door, so I held out my hands and they all bombarded me. There is no 10 feet rule there. Well, you could have. So Penny, if you wanted to be a stickler, you could have told the judge of elections. And the judge of elections, if they followed the law, they would have gone outside and said, you need to stand 10 feet from the door. Get back. And, how much grace do you give people? Because one year I was giving out cards one of these years in the winter. Would it have been the winter? It must have been a November election. So it was freezing cold and we were standing closer to the door than we should have been. But that's because somebody had a space heater and we were freezing. And so, but somebody could have blown the whistle on us. And if the judge came out and said move, we would have had to move. That is the law. And so there's that. Yes, I know John Marietta, Hillbilly John. He won his primary, I heard, for the Recorder of Deeds in Fayette County. I heard he won his primary. John is a good man. He's a good man. Hillbilly John. Oh, I love Hillbilly John. Nikki, she got her shovel ready. Good. I can't believe there's still so many people watching me, just listening to me ramble. Does anyone else have any questions that we'll give it 2 seconds. Joel will close with a funny video. They were all at the door. Yes, Nikki, you could have. You could have said, you guys have to stand 10 feet from the door, especially if the weather was nice and you felt like you shouldn't feel like you're getting jumped on. Like, that's the reason it's 10 feet from the door. So you could have, but if they don't answer you, that's the judge of elections. Again, why those positions are so important. They're the boss. They are the head honcho and they are the boss at the polling location. Here, let me say this before and there's more people watching. Joel, what the heck? Let me say this. We have to learn our side, and I hate sides, has to learn how to communicate our values, what we stand for and why in way better than we're currently doing. This is one of my pet peeves is we had our judge of elections yesterday, Democrat. wonderful girl, worked her butt off, honest as all get out. No way was something getting through that girl. She worked hard. We had a voter come in who we know and started yelling at her after he put his ballot in the machine and said, you need to hand count the paper. We need to get rid of these machines. Now, you all know that's where I stand, like 100%. Pointing and yelling at the judge of elections, though, like she can control it right then and there when you have no clue what side she's on, not effective. And we had been conversing with her, and we knew she was a Democrat, but she's not crazy far lefty. We had a lot of common ground. She was about my age. I felt really good about the relationship I was building with her. And that's how you influence people, by the way. You just love on them, ask them questions, get to know them a little bit, find common ground. You can't convince them to come on your side of anything until you find some common ground. So we were doing such a good job of that. And then in comes this voter, and she, of course, gets her back up and starts going back against him and be like, that'll never happen. And we had to hear the tirade against how great the machines are and that they're not connected to Wi-Fi and blah, blah, blah. And we were just, our heads were down. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm not even. And the voter who we know was looking at us because he was looking for us to be like, help me out here. And I didn't even look. I'm like, I'm not looking because he means well and God love him, but this is not effective. And I'm not. And the good news is we were able to then have the conversation of, I was able to out myself as, yeah, I actually do. I'm a proponent for hand counting, but here's why. And guess what? When you said it nicely to her after building some rapport with her the whole morning and part of the afternoon, she's like, well, I love having conversations on things we don't agree on, because I think we do have to come to some type of middle ground. And I was able to explain when the polls were closing, and she was super transparent and showing us how those machines were shutting down. I was then able to explain why I'm against machines to her. And I don't know if it got through, but that's how we that's how we fight back. Because when we get Democrats, independents to understand what, if you're watching this and you're with us, like, we don't want machines, we want to hand count paper ballots. When we get other people on the other side of the aisle with us, the government will have to. That's when they're like, oh crap, because everybody from all sides is in agreement. And pointing your finger and yelling at them, not the best. Not saying guilty. I love it. You're welcome, Lisa. Okay, so we got to work on that. Work on it. I have so many ideas all the time. There's curriculum I'd love to put together on people skills and communication and leadership skills to get us better at this. We've got to get better at communicating and giving people grace and having some patience, because this girl, she might be somebody that we could eventually win over in terms of that particular issue, but we're not going to by screen. Here's my go-to. I'll tell you my secret, and then we'll play the funny video. And there's more and more people watching every minute. This is crazy. I ask questions. Don't fight the urge to talk and yell and get your point across, because that's not going to convince them. What's going to convince them is you win them over. They have to like you first. So start asking them questions about themselves. Just get them talking and seek to find common ground with those you don't agree with. Ask questions, find some common ground. And then eventually you'll be able to have a much more effective conversation. There, I'm giving you all my secrets. I have to do, you know what? And I'm going way too long because I have to do another interview. Dave is going to choke me. If you follow a guy on, and I got a bunch of text messages that I have to go through as well. If you follow a guy on YouTube, Dave Sisti, he has a podcast called God's News in the News. I don't know if we're going to be live, but I got to hop off because I promised him, he's in Wisconsin. He's an hour or two behind me. And I promised him that I would go on his podcast. So Liberty Line, yes, like and share. Thank you guys for tuning in. It is so good to see the viewership go up. We've got to get our message out. Continue to share our stuff. Follow us on social media. Like stuff. Share it. Don't be afraid to ask me a hard question. You can ask me a hard question anytime you want to. Somebody in our social media today is saying, if I could get you to meet with Scott Presler, would you? Heck yeah, I would love to. That's adding to my frustration, is that I've been blocked and he doesn't seem to want to talk this through with anybody or answer any questions. So yes, you can ask me anything you want, anytime. I know, Penny. Take a breath, girl. Take a breath and go read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I've read it multiple times in the last 20 years. My oldest daughter started it last summer. We're going to go through it this summer for sure. She only got through the first couple of chapters. It will change your life. You will become more effective. We'll be able to communicate our values to people, win them over, and change the culture. That's how we do this. So with that being said, Joe, I'm losing my voice. So let's get this funny video out. We'll say goodnight. Oh, and next week, before we do the funny video, sorry. Next week, I have a guest, Gail Golick from Arizona. She is another mom, just like me, election integrity activist that got involved after the 2020 election went awry. And she's done a lot of great work in the state of Arizona. And she's agreed to come on the show next week. And we're going to learn all about what they're doing. What's their plan in Arizona? I know they have a new governor running, it looks like. Andy Biggs, I think is his name. I've seen good, I've seen bad, I've seen ugly. We're going to find out what's going on in the ground in Arizona from Gail Golick next week. So with that, Joel, go ahead and roll this video. I will zip it.
I fell asleep at a meeting in Saudi Arabia. Fake news. I closed my eyes for 2 seconds thinking, deep thinking, smart thinking. I just flew 12 hours, no sleep, straight into high-level talks. And guess what? I still ran the room. No teleprompter, no naps, unlike Sleepy Joe. They call it dozing off. I call it global strategy. America's back, stronger, smarter, and wide awake.
So good. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Don't be discouraged. We'll see you next week at 9 o'clock.